Next up, let's talk about Mass Effect stuff. This is something that me, you, and Adam Strawn talked about on the main podcast last week because as part of N7 Day, November 7th, Bioware put out like a little teaser thing, and they said it was in engine gameplay. It was like not representative of gameplay, but it is in engine, and it was a character with like a long flowing coat on and a high collar and like a helmet, looking very Tron-y, walking through like down a corridor, and then whatever. And like fans have taken that thing and ran with it in terms of like, oh my god, does it mean they're like an assassin character or whatever? According to known insider Jeff Grubb, speaking over on his Games Mess podcast alongside GameSpot's Timo Hussein, he said that Mass Effect 5 isn't coming until 2029.
Oh!
And only doubled down on the state of development. Grubb said that it's nowhere near coming out. He cited Dragon Age Dreadwolf was announced in 2018 and said we still haven't got that. That's 5 years later. Dragon Age Dreadwolf is apparently penciled in for next year, but just said it's a very similar time frame with Mass Effect. And again, said it's nowhere near coming out. This is a similar sort of timeline. Said 2029, and then both presenters, Hussein himself, said the game's nowhere near done, and then Hussein said it's in another galaxy right now. So that teaser thing, maybe it's in engine, but it's going to be another 5 years or whatever. My maths isn't.
Scott,
but, yeah.
I have a question for you, right?
Go on, mate.
Do you like it when game companies, publisher studios, whatever, drop a trailer for something that is literally so far down the line you will forget about the trailer in 2 years? Do you want to have that acknowledgement that the game is actually coming, so it assuages any fears that they're dead, for lack of a better phrase? Or would you just rather be like, we're going to do... People always use the Fallout 4 example from Bethesda where they were like,
yes,
coming out in a few months.
Or Elder Scrolls 6. It depends on the level of confidence I have in a studio overall, and I think sometimes, I mean, the reason that they announced Dragon Age Dreadwolf way ahead of time was during the post-Anthem stuff when they were fighting for their lives to stay afloat anyway. And there was a whole thing back then about how they just put the trailer out as it was either at the Game Awards or E3 or whatever to remind people that BioWare had something else in the fire and not just a multiplayer live service shooter. So that was already years before it should have been mentioned. But like you said with Bethesda, they did it with Elder Scrolls 6 as well, where it's like, we've got a logo, guys, and it's like Metroid Prime 4 was like, we've got a logo, and then that thing restarted development. So I like knowing that developers I love are active, but I think if there's literally nothing other than a logo, what's the point? Like, you're going to stimmy up all this conversation around the IP. It's going to spike in terms of search terms and everything, and you don't actually capitalize on that spike. You let it all die down again. It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple years is fine. I think if we're looking at like 5, it's like, come on. I mean, it's embarrassing. Like the Star Wars Knights of the Republic remake, when that got announced to 2021 at the PlayStation Showcase, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, that game we now know pretty certain it's not happening anymore.
Doesn't seem to be.
So it's just kind of, it just feels like, drumming up false hope. Not that I don't think this new Mass Effect isn't going to happen, and I know that Mass Effect has got such a passionate little fan base, and I would probably say that the reason why they're dropping this is that we haven't had enough Mass Effect general media over the last few years. It's very bizarre to me that Cyberpunk 2077 can come out and have an anime within a year, and meanwhile Mass Effect, which I think is one of the richest sci-fi tapestries in the gaming medium, obviously a lot of like extracurricular material has been built up around that game, but it's not really been placed at the forefront in like a really prominent medium the way that others have. You'd think that an anime Mass Effect would be amazing. It would make perfect sense.
The amount of that's the thing. The amount of animated projects that are being greenlit right now. The new Onimusha show on Netflix is awesome. Like there was an update on the Devil May Cry anime that's coming up. Like that seems to be the thing. Like Netflix especially are steering into that, which I, as a huge anime and animation fan in general, I'm loving seeing that. But like you said, there are so many opportunities for side stories in Mass Effect that you could do to just generally revitalize the IP a bit and remind people why they fell in love with it in the first place. And there are so many things in the lore that they could just do an anime on. I think a lot of it just comes down to a general lack of overall planning. Like they don't know which major parts of that lore they want to use in the games. And I think it's one of those things where a lot of the leaders of what Mass Effect was just aren't at the studio anymore. And so I don't know, I have zero faith in modern BioWare, which just sounds horrible to say, but it's just one of those things where I had vestiges of hope after Mass Effect Andromeda that were very much killed by Anthem. And then it's one of those things where I just need to wait and see what the hell they're doing. But they've not been the BioWare that I love for 11 years now.
Well, here's hoping that EA have recalibrated and that they're maybe given the freedom to make. I feel like that trilogy has such a fondness going for it that EA will be aware of as well. So you would hope that any future installment is going to be more of a throwback to those games, and they'll get the requisite time to actually make something and not to be sabotaged by the Frostbite engine if they're still using that.
Well, that's the thing, because it's going to be 2029, let's say, that's a PS6, that's a next generation console game, which like lines up with what Jason Schreier said, I think it was at the very beginning of this year, might have been last year, about anyone entering into a AAA game development now is making it for the next series of consoles, which is just painful at this point. But it's like, yeah, with that combination of the tech changing and what the hell story you even do as this sort of addendum type thing with Mass Effect after everything that happened in Mass Effect 3, who even knows? But I guess we'll see. Next news item down is from concept artist Hung Nguyen, including Insomniac's Wolverine on their ArtStation portfolio. It's a big deal because they include the potential release date of 2024. Now, this person's profile has now been mined and shared loads, and it seems like they've had to hide some things.
I feel so bad, man. I want to hide.
I know, and it's like it happens all the time, and it's just one of those things where we can talk about it a little bit. Do you think they could turn Wolverine around 1 year after Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, because it's a different Insomniac studio, isn't it? They've got two different development teams. This is the guys who were working on Miles Morales, I believe. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Give them enough time to do it. I know Brian Intihar was saying that the other day just let the Wolverine team cook. So yeah, I mean 2024 makes perfect sense. I'm very much looking forward to that game, because I love me the X-Men, and I'm very curious to see what an Insomniac developed Wolverine game actually looks like, and whether or not they have enough of that 90s dog in them to make a properly fun X-Men throwback game.
Yeah, tonally, like it's like the way that Spider-Man is. I don't know enough about the wider universe, the different takes on the character and stuff, but it felt like initially in the original 2018 game, it was like, or 2019 game, it was like Spider-Man 101, like 2018. Yeah. It's like the Spider-Man 616 kind of thing. Like we're going like straight down the line, and then like over time we brought in the Ultimate stuff and Miles Morales and things like that. And I love that they've done that to make it their own. So I wonder, I guess you'll know, like, are there specific arcs to pull from that you would need to be in there, but then they can make them their own?
Yes, I'm personally hoping that they go through like a Madripoor kind of arc. You know, Madripoor, for people who aren't as well versed in the comics, it was featured in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, which obviously was a bad TV show. But Madripoor is heavily tied to espionage in the X-Men universe, and there's a period of time in Wolverine's comics where he basically went undercover as like a bar owner called what's his name? I can't remember the name that he went by, but basically has like an eye patch on. It's a really cool look, and I'm fairly certain that in the initial reveal trailer for Wolverine, I think he owns the Princess Bar, and I'm fairly certain the Princess Bar is what is featured in that trailer. So I'm hoping that maybe they're going to go through like an 80s inspired Miller-esque kind of like crime action game set in Madripoor, and that would be better for me, because I'd rather have that than have Wolverine be set in like New York or like America, like, or you know, go for that kind of like that Eastern setting, you know, dive into those roots. Frank Miller was the guy who really kind of elevated Wolverine to the next tier of his, like, you know, his legend. So yeah, Madripoor would be the one for me. As to whether or not it's open world or linear, I don't know. It would be pretty fun to ride around on a motorcycle and have a dedicated cigar button.
If you had a thing where you could ride a cigar,
ride a cigar and smoke a motorcycle.
Ride a cigar if you want. But ride a motorbike into like a platoon of street goons and you jump off it with the double claws and you go in. That would be sweet.
Better improve the Spider-Man jumping on car thing, where you could like go across a convoy of slicing dudes up and like slicing wheels. And yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah. I'm very much ready for the X-Men to have their moment again, because I bloody love the X-Men. I recently replayed both X-Men Legends games, which are just absolute joy. Like, of, you know, even if you're new to the X-Men now, I'd still recommend playing those games, because they're like the perfect introduction to the entire like universe or whatever.
Same with the Ultimate Alliance.
Yes, games. Exactly. Same guys who did those. So I'm hopeful as well that they bring back Steve Blum to play the character, because he, to me, again first appeared as Wolverine in X-Men Legends. He, to me, is like what Kevin Conroy was to Batman. I think of Steve Blum as being Wolverine. So yeah,
get Mark Hamill back in. Just get Mark Hamill's Wolverine.